Shabbat Shalom and Gemar Chatima Tova, everybody. Thank you. So, I understand there's a football game tonight. I guess the Huskers didn't check the Jewish calendar, although Yom Kippur has been on there quite a long time. Well, I'm glad all of you are here tonight. And by the way, who knew that football was going to be such a controversial issue at Yom Kippur this year? But I'm not going there, don't worry. But speaking of football, what do you think is the difference between football and real life? Now, I know some of you are probably mumbling, what is this guy talking about? Football is real life. But there actually is a big difference, at least in one respect. Football is a zero-sum game. One team wins, the other team loses. It's that simple. Black and white. Or red and white, as the case may be. But life is not a zero-sum game. Not when it comes to relationships. When it comes to conflict and heartache and bruised egos and bruised feelings and who's right and who's wrong, very rarely is there a clear winner and a clear loser. Life is just not that simple. Our sages say in the Mishnah, for sins committed by one human being against another, the Day of Atonement does not atone until the one who acted wrongly has appeased the person he wronged. The point is this. The one who acted wrongly has the responsibility to reach out and apologize. But this is the problem. See, when there's conflict between two people, it's rarely the case that one person is completely in the wrong and one person is completely in the right. Relationships just aren't that black and white. Usually, both of us end up doing things and saying things that we shouldn't and causing pain and hurt to the other person. And since we've both acted wrongly, that means it's both of us who need to reach out and ask for forgiveness. And that's the hard part. When someone has caused us pain, it's hard to reach out to them and say, I'm sorry. Sorry for what? He's the one who hurt me. He's the one who should be asking me for forgiveness. That's what we think. Yes, he should. And it's just not that simple. Relationships are not a zero-sum game. Some of us here tonight, I know, are struggling with the pain of unresolved conflict. It's weighing on us. It hurts. And we're not sure what to do about it. Maybe it's a friend. We've had an argument or some kind of falling out, and we haven't talked for a while, and we miss them. Maybe it's our spouse. We haven't made enough time for each other, and we feel like we're drifting apart, and home feels cold and tense instead of warm and peaceful like it used to. Maybe it's a colleague. We had words over something or some kind of confrontation, and now our interactions are awkward and uncomfortable. And instead of sitting down and talking it out, we just avoid each other. Or maybe it's our child. They've told us we're too critical, too judgmental, that we don't understand or support them enough. And so they've stopped calling. And we feel abandoned and alone. I want you to know, whatever it is that you're struggling with, you're not alone. I'll tell you right now, I've got some wounds that still hurt pretty badly. I get it. I learned something recently from a mentor of mine, and it's helped me tremendously in my life, and I want to share it with you. It's called the doctrine of 100% responsibility. And here's how it works. It says that every person is 100% responsible for his or her own behavior. No more and no less. Unfortunately, when we have conflict in our relationships, we have a tendency to do one of two things. Either because we feel guilty, we accept more than our 100% share of responsibility and take responsibility for the other person's behavior in addition to our own. Or because we can be self-righteous and stiff-necked, as the Torah puts it, we refuse to admit any fault, and instead we blame our own bad behavior on them. Both of these tendencies are mistaken. We can and must take exactly 100% responsibility for our own behavior. No more and no less either. So, if we've been unkind to someone, we're 100% responsible for that, even if they've been unkind to us too. If we've spoken harshly to them or about them, we're 100% responsible for that, even if what we said is true. If we've lost our temper and lashed out in anger, we're 100% responsible for that, even if we feel they drove us to it. Whatever they may have done, they are responsible for it. But it's no justification for our failure to be our highest self. We are 100% responsible for our own behavior, no excuses, period. Sounds simple, but boy, is it hard to get there. It's natural to think of it in black and white terms and say, they're clearly wrong, and I'm clearly right. And yeah, maybe I did some things or said some things that I shouldn't have, but seriously? It's because of what they did to me. And what they did is much, much worse. And we hold to that line because it feels like, were we to concede any wrongdoing on our own part, it would somehow cause our story to crack and undermine our legitimate feelings of being wronged and mean that they aren't as guilty as we say they are. But of course, that's not the case. It is possible to hold two truths at the same time. It can be completely true that they behaved horribly toward us and wounded us terribly. And at the same time, it can be completely true that we said and did things that caused them pain too. And neither of these truths takes anything away from the other, because both are true. Both are reality. And once we see that, we have to own it. We have to own our transgressions and do what God demands of us when we transgress. And that's teshuvah, atonement. For sins committed by one human being against another, the Day of Atonement does not atone until the one who acted wrongly has appeased the person he wronged. That means we have to reach out and take 100% responsibility for our part and say, I'm sorry. Maybe write a letter Maybe it's a phone call or a face-to-face conversation. But one way or the other, we have to do it. There's just no way around it. This is not just a sermon for me. As I said, I've got wounds, and they're fresh and they're raw, just like yours. And I'm not telling you to do anything that I haven't done myself and recently. I know it's not easy. In fact, it's really, really hard. But doing teshuvah is a mitzvah, a religious obligation, and it's the right thing to do. I have struggled with this mightily. I've studied it intently, and I've prayed about it intently. And here's the approach I've come up with to that letter that we need to write, or that conversation we need to have. It's 3 principles. First, acknowledge the good in the other person. Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav teaches that there's good in every single person, even the worst people, because all of us are created in the image of God. The problem is when someone has hurt us, it's hard to see the good in them. Or maybe more to the point, it's hard to remember the good that's in them. After all, most of the time, the conflicts that we have are with people who are close to us, people we care about, people who at some point in the past we liked or loved. So it's a powerful spiritual practice to remind ourselves of the good, their good qualities, the good times that we shared, the good things they've done for us. The good is there in them. We just may not want to acknowledge it. But we need to acknowledge it anyway. And we need to do it straight up and with no qualifications. Tell them, you've been a good friend, or a good parent, or a good child, or a good sibling. And tell them how. And thank them for it. Because it's true. Sadly, we tend to hold on so tightly to the negative that we lose our grip on the positive. But being honest about the good that's in them is important because it helps us see the full picture of who they really are. And we may have a little less difficulty taking responsibility for the wrongs that we've done to them. The second principle is to confess the sins that we have committed against them. Maimonides says that confession is the essence of teshuvah. That even if we've admitted our wrongdoing to ourselves and to God privately, we still haven't made teshuvah until we've confessed our transgressions directly to the person we've wronged. And that's painful to do. Probably because speaking our sins aloud or putting them in writing makes them feel real in a way that they just don't if we think about them only internally. And that's the point. Genuine teshuvah requires us to really feel and internalize the wrongs that we've done. And we can't do that unless we confess them outwardly and specifically. So we have to dig deeply and be completely honest with ourselves about our own behavior in the whole conflict. And when we do, we'll know what it is that we've done wrong. And we won't feel at peace until we've confessed it and taken responsibility for it and said, I'm sorry. Straight up, no qualifications, no excuses. for criticizing you and judging you unfairly. I'm sorry. For ignoring you or dismissing you or not validating your feelings. I'm sorry. For being too self-absorbed and not being there when you needed me. I am sorry. Do it honestly and do it sincerely. Because confessing our sins directly to the person that we've wronged, even and especially when we feel wronged by them too, that's the essence of teshuvah. The third and final principle is do it unconditionally. Genuine teshuvah isn't something that we do because we expect something in return. It's something we do because taking 100% responsibility for our own behavior is a mitzvah. It would be great, it would be great if after we find that strength and courage to do the right thing and reach out to them, that the other person would respond in kind. And maybe that will happen. But we have to go into this knowing that it might not. They may never say, thank you for your honesty. They may never say, I forgive you. They may never give us the apology we know they owe us. We may never hear anything from them. And we have to be okay with that. Should they do the right thing? Absolutely. Will they? Who knows? We can't control their behavior. But we can control ours. And if we do teshuvah unconditionally, then regardless of how they respond, regardless of whether they respond at all, we can be at peace knowing we tried to bring about healing and reconciliation. Yom Kippur starts now, tonight. And here's what I'm asking you to do. Every single one of us in this sanctuary. Think of one person whom you know deep down in the hidden places of your heart. One person whom you know you need to apologize to. Pray about it. Meditate about it. Reflect on it. Find the strength and the courage and the humility that is in you. And then sit down and write them a letter. Or give them a call. And do teshuvah. Acknowledge the good in them and thank them for it. Confess your transgressions honestly and take 100% responsibility for your own behavior. Do it unconditionally, do it wholeheartedly, and do it because it's the right thing to do. And do it before the day is out tomorrow. Because if we can do these things, even in our pain and our hurt, then our teshuvah will be genuine. And it will be transformative. And it will bring us and the whole world one step closer to wholeness. G'mar Chatima Tova.